Some of the significant changes recently in Lightroom revolve around the functionality of profiles. Camera profiles have been available in Lightroom for a while, but they were always buried down in the camera calibrations panel, and options were very limited. So Adobe's expanded on the functionality of profiles, moved them up to the basic panel, the top of the basic panel up here at the right. So it's one of the first things you see in the Develop module. So in this video, we'll take a quick look at profiles and how you can use them with your photos. The first thing to point out is that there are a few different types of profiles, and the profiles that you'll see available will depend on a few different things, including the camera that you used and the type of file that you're working with. If you're working with a RAW file, you'll have more options than a JPEG. This is a RAW file, so I have several different options here in the drop-down. Adobe Color is the new default for when you're importing new photos into Lightroom. It used to be Adobe Standard, but they've added some others like Adobe Landscape, Adobe Portrait, Adobe Vivid, and Adobe Monochrome. So if you click on Browse, or if you click on the icon here to the right, it will open the profile browser. In the Adobe Raw folder, you've got the options that we just looked at in the drop-down. So you can choose one of these basically as a starting point for your photo. And the intent of RAW profiles is to get a consistent look and feel across your photos regardless of which camera you're using to take the photo. If you're working with a JPEG, you're not going to see all these options. The options that you'll have will basically be color and monochrome. Then the next type of profile that we're going to look at is camera matching. And again, these are only available if you're working with a RAW file. And the intent with the camera matching profiles is basically to match what you're seeing on your camera's LCD screen in terms of color and tone. Now, the specific profiles that you have to choose from will depend on the camera that was used to take the photo. In this case, I have 5 different options to choose from. Then the last type of profile we'll look at are the creative profiles. And Adobe comes with a bunch pre-installed. I've got some that they're calling artistic profiles, several black and white profiles, some that are labeled as modern, and then the last is a set of vintage profiles. So the creative profiles are a little different than the RAW profiles or the camera matching profiles. These creative profiles can be used with any type of file, whether it's RAW, JPEG, or anything else. They're also a little more similar to Lightroom presets in that they will give your photo a specific look or effect, and there's a lot of different possibilities with them. You can also install custom profiles that you've purchased from other sites. For example, we have our own creative profiles that we sell at Loaded Landscapes. These two down here, LL Landscapes and LL Mono. They're in the same pack that you can purchase, but we've got them in 2 different folders, one for the color effects and one for the monochromatic effects. So a few different things to point out with creative profiles. First of all, select one here. And then you'll notice up at the top there's an amount slider. This is similar to an opacity slider that will impact the strength of the effect. So if you want to soften the effect to make it a little bit more subtle, you can move it to the left. If you want to make the effect stronger, you can move it to the right. By default, the amount will be set right in the middle at 100. And this amount slider is only going to show up with creative profiles. It won't be there with the RAW profiles or the camera matching profiles. The other thing I want to point out is the favorites. So you can mark a profile as a favorite by clicking on the star icon, and then when you open up the favorites, it will be listed. So this is pretty useful because as you use profiles, you'll probably find that you use the same ones over and over again. And if you have a lot of folders in there, and you can wind up taking a lot of time to scroll through. But if you have it marked as a favorite, you can find it pretty fast. If you want to remove something from the favorites, you just click on the star icon and it will be removed from the favorites folder. So profiles work a little bit differently than presets. Profiles do not impact the sliders in the Develop module. Like right now I've got one of the Loaded Landscapes profiles applied. If I close out of the profile browser, we can see in the Develop module that all of the sliders and settings are at the default settings. So this profile hasn't impacted those settings at all. So that means it's not going to override changes that you've already made to your photo. So you can change the profile at any point and it's not going to impact any of these sliders. On the other hand, a preset will impact the sliders. I'm going to go ahead and apply a preset that's from our Landscape Legend Lightroom presets. Go with the Warm and Vibrant preset. So now if we come over, you can see that a lot of the sliders have been changed. And that's the way presets work, is they apply specific settings to the photo. So there's pros and cons with each way. As I mentioned, with the profile, you can apply it without overriding the other settings that you've already changed, which is nice. But at the same time, seeing the settings that are used by a preset can be really helpful too, because it's easy to edit after you apply the preset. You can go ahead and make changes as needed. And where it's really useful is if you're new to Lightroom or you're looking to learn more about how to achieve certain looks, you can come in here to the settings and see exactly what was used by the preset to get this specific look. So in this case, the preset is warm and vibrant, so I can see that the vibrance was set to 18. And if I come down, I can see that split toning was used to give this photo some warmth. So you can learn a lot, especially if you're new, by looking at the settings that are applied by specific presets. With profiles, on the other hand, that's not possible. So for example, right now we're going back to having the profile applied. Since I can't see the settings that are used, I have no way to know what was done to get this specific look for the photo. So there's pros and cons either way. One of the nice things about profiles is they can be used in Lightroom and Photoshop. If you're in Photoshop, if you open a RAW file, it will automatically open in Camera Raw. If you're working with a JPEG file, you'll have to manually open it in Camera Raw. And the profiles work essentially the same way in Camera Raw. Up here at the top, we've got a drop down that we can choose. You can click on Browse or click on this icon here to open up the profile browser. And then it's basically exactly the same as what we saw in Lightroom Classic. You can also use the profiles in Lightroom CC, the cloud-based version. So if we move over to that, to bring up the profiles, we'll click on the Edit icon. And then we've got the drop down with the different RAW profiles to choose from. You can click on Browse. You can also click on the Browse button up here. It'll open the browser, and again, it looks the same, and we have the same profiles to choose from. The other nice thing is that you can now use custom profiles on a mobile device using Lightroom CC. Previously, you could only use the pre-installed presets. You couldn't install your own custom presets or third-party presets and use them on a mobile device, but now you can. You'll install them on the desktop version of Lightroom CC, and they'll automatically sync to your mobile device. So that's a quick look at profiles and how you can start to use them with your own photos.